And it is time once again to get solar powered. We welcome you back to the Solar Powered Podcast, where we celebrate the world changing magic of ordinary people sharing extraordinary stories. My name is Ryan Hall. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And as we record this here in late January, I've been kind of weighing whether or not I wanted to use this word, and I'll figure I'll go ahead and use it. We're kind of in what the kids would call cuffing season right now, where people are out kind of looking to create love as part of their story in 2025. We've kind of gotten over the New Year's hump. Valentine's Day is just staring us right in the face. I mean, you can go into Walgreens and they've already lined the walls with, Valentine's Day candy and whatnot. But we've got somebody on the line with us here today. She's a dating and relationship expert, love coach. Her name is Whitney Kobrin. She's a new friend of mine. We met in a networking group, and I think we've got a fascinating story about how to create the best version of yourself so you can create love as part of your story in 2025. And she joins us now. Whitney, thank you for getting solar powered with us today.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. First question I'd love to ask you is, who is Whitney Corbin? What is your story?
Oh, well, I have always been a good listener, and I always, since I was about 13, wanted to be a counseling therapist. I studied psychology. I've always been interested in people and our inner workings and our relational dynamics. I had my own bad habits in relationships that I lived out through my teens, 20s. When I was about 30, I came across this coach named Rory Ray, who was one of the first femininity and dating and relationship coaches that I had seen. And I learned so much from her, and my energy started to shift. And that's when I met my husband and got married. And my son was already 5 at the time. I had my son in my early 20s in a very toxic relationship that, was kind of doomed from the start, unfortunately. Um, but thankfully I've learned a lot since then and gotten a lot more wise than I was in those early years. Um, so I thought, I met my husband and we're happily ever after. And then in 2017, he passed away just very suddenly, unexpected. And so everything just kind of changed and stopped in that moment. And I talk about this because it was like a rebirth for me. I got this whole new look on life, that life is short, that we can't spend our lives waiting to take action, waiting until everything's right, waiting until I lose 10 pounds, waiting until, so many people, so many of us, we're stuck in this cycle of procrastination and putting off the things that are the most important and what we desire and what our soul's calling is. And so I kind of got back to what my calling was. And so I had been working in recruiting. I took all my recruiting knowledge plus the psychology that I had and became a matchmaker. And that was really fun and interesting. And I have couples that are married today. I've been to some weddings of clients, but I got really curious about the people that I would match and it wasn't working out. What was going on? So that's when I got my coaching certification and started coaching people, and haven't looked back. So it's been about 7 years now. And I currently run a few group programs like Dating Done Right and Ready for Love, to just be the help and guidance and support that I wish I would have had when I was clueless about dating. Because it's like the blind leading the blind out there. Everyone's asking their friends and family for advice, and nobody really knows. Plus, we have like so much that has changed because of online dating and so much of it going online. And it's not the way that it was meant to be, and it doesn't feel right because it's not. But we have to learn to use the tools that we have to the best of our advantage. And that's what I've been completely committed to for these last 7 years. And I thankfully met my partner a year after my husband passed, and we've been together ever since. It's like the most amazing relationship I could have possibly imagined. So I've gotten the chance to really grow myself and learn what it takes to be in a healthy relationship, and see how different it is when you're looking for someone. Like, what you think you want is often very different than what you need in the long run. And we often will say, oh, this person's not my type. But if you keep dating the same type and it keeps not working out, then maybe your type is wrong. There's trauma bonding, there's all these things that, like, I realized that my instincts when I was younger were all totally wrong. And it's so hard to figure out how to date and how to choose a person and how to do all of this when we've never been taught. And we've learned from our dysfunctional families and TV and movies, which is all about entertainment and tragedy and comedy. So it's no wonder that we're suffering. I mean, the numbers will show you that more and more people are single, and you might look at that and say, oh, that's great, you're single, you're happy, you're not. But I agree that it's better to be single than in a bad relationship, but being in a healthy relationship where you feel seen and heard and supported and cared for, and you're able to, co-regulate each other's nervous system, like, it is such a beautiful gift that I want more people to have. So yeah, I don't want to uh, ramble on forever. I love to hear what you will have to say and your questions and all that as well.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that, and really a lot to unpack from that answer. But I think really and a few things that I definitely want to touch on during our conversation. But one thing that I wanted to, kind of reflect was that a lot of your, like a lot of your desire to really learn about what makes relationships tick, I think really it sounded like it really started with just a super low point in your life, obviously, when your husband, you know, unexpectedly passed away. And like, I'm reminded of an old friend of mine who, unfortunately, she passed away a number of years ago, but she married super young, had a couple of kids super young. I think she was um, a mother of two by the time she was 25. But her husband passed away suddenly of I think a heart aneurysm. And she found herself a single mother at 25 and kind of going through some ridiculous kind of dating scenarios. But she told me that he didn't learn what made her tick until she not only had to unpack the grief of losing her husband suddenly, but kind of navigating that dating world after having been married. And I get a lot of that from what you just shared.
Yeah, yeah, it's really like being thrown to the wolves, because there's it's the general public, and you know how people are from behind screens. They can be really rude, mean, selfish, relentless, and it's like you're trying to find your needle in a haystack, and yet every piece of hay is talking to you, has the potential to offend you. And so it's like we need to not be distracted by the hay and not take those things personally. But that's so much harder to do than just to say.
No, it definitely can be. And there's just so much distraction out there. There's so much distraction online, especially with like the so-called red pill, blue pill community. And I don't even want to get into that, but there's just so much just toxic stuff out there that when somebody like myself have, got some life experience behind me, but who are looking for somebody, sometimes we don't know what's right, what's wrong, and we can be easily influenced by a lot of this toxic nonsense.
Yeah, well, back in the early 2000s, there was this pickup artist culture. So I don't know if you've ever looked into that. I mean,
I have, yeah.
thankfully, thankfully it's not popular anymore. But it was like really manipulative stuff about how to pick up girls and get laid, and it wasn't really about long-term relationships. And some of the things that they said, like, there's some truth and some validity in it because of the masculine feminine stuff that most women want to feel feminine, most men, want to feel masculine, and yet our society keeps telling us, that gender's a construct and we're all the same and we're all equal. And so yeah, it's always tricky because I think that there are always extremes. And it's like you could be extremely one way, like masculine and feminine don't exist and gender is a construct and we're all equal and we all have to be the same. And then too far on the other end is like men have to be this way and women have to be this way and you have to be alpha. And it's like, no, that's bullshit. Like, not every
Really?
woman is looking for an alpha man. And we have to find that sweet spot, that middle zone that feels authentic, but also creates that polarity dynamic in relationships, because that's what creates the spark.
Yeah, totally. And that really leads me into a great question. Have in your studies, in your practice, in your coaching, have you found that opposites attract?
That's a really good question. And there's a few different um, types of opposition, right? So, one way that opposites do attract is like this masculine feminine polarity. It's like one person is typically more in this feminine energy, and it doesn't have to be male or female, but the feminine is more like receiving and filling the space and tending to the emotions and the relationship. And the masculine tends to be more like structured and planning and pushing things forward. And so when we have two people that are taking the opposite pole, they attract. And that's where opposites can attract. For example, if a woman wants a man to pay for the dates and plan the dates and be the man so she can kind of relax and let go of her boss babe mentality when she's at home, because it's exhausting. And in for a lot of women in our feminine bodies and everything, we can do it, but we also need to rest and get out of it sometimes. And so if a woman shows up saying, well, I need an equal partner and I'm going to show him that I'll pay for the dates and then I want him to, but it can backfire, because if she starts doing that, then he'll just expect her to do it. So I don't know. There's a lot of different like nuances here. And I just want to preface everything with, I'm not trying to put anyone in a box. Everybody's an individual, and everybody, what works for one person might not work for another. But the way I look at some of these factors, like masculine feminine polarity, is it's just laws of nature. So I'm here to share what the laws of nature are, just like gravity is a law of nature. Do with it what you want. I don't tell people what to do, but I think it's an important thing that we've lost touch with. That
I love that take. Obviously there are some ways that opposites do attract, but have you found that there are ways that opposites can really not attract? I don't want to say repel, but like really not attract.
Yeah. So what's most important is that we have similar values, that we value the same things. So most people, when they're getting together, they'll base their compatibility on how attracted they are and similar interests. And this is not actually what influences real compatibility with somebody. In fact, you don't have to have the same interests. If one person likes motorcycles and the other person likes crocheting, you don't have to have the same interests. You can have lives that are not 100% together. Like, You can go off and do your own hobbies and have other friends. In fact, that's healthy and needed and necessary in a relationship. You can't expect your person to be your everything, your best friend, your accountant, your inspiration. It's too much pressure for one person. But going back to that example of motorcycles and crochet. So what does matter is your values. So if the person that rides motorcycles values freedom and leisure time, then it's going to be important that the other person also values that. So they might value freedom and leisure time, but use their leisure time for crocheting instead. And so it's not just what you like to do and your hobbies or interests that need to be aligned, but it's the underlying values. And when we talk about values, most people think about religious values, but there is an endless list of things that we could value in life, right? Do you value tasty food, or do you value your health and eating according to, what your diet is recommended? Like those are values that are important because if we don't have similar values like money, are you someone that likes to save and make money and stockpile it? Or are you someone that likes to spend it and go on vacations and have experiences? Do you value family and kids? Do you want to spend a lot of time with your family or not? These are the kind of things that you can see people fight about later on in relationships. And that's why we need to start early in our dating experience finding out what that person values. It doesn't, we have this tendency to ask interview questions like, where did you go to school, where did you grow up, and where do you work, and what do you do for fun? And like, those are okay to break the ice in a date, but you don't want your date to feel like an interview. That's just not sexy. It's not appealing. It doesn't create
Yeah.
attraction. You want to start asking the deeper questions like, what motivates you to wake up in the morning? Why do you do your job? Why do you love it? What would you do if you didn't have to work and make money? How do you feel about family? How do you feel about money? How do you feel about travel? Like, these are the kinds of things that we want to know. Do you value being adventurous, or do you value being safe and secure? And so, to some extent, we can still have opposites attract as long as there's a lot of communication and understanding. But we want to really align when it comes to two main things: our core values, what we value in life, and our long term vision. You could be super compatible with someone, but if you don't have the same long-term vision, you're not going to be able to live a life together. So,
Yep. Yeah, completely. One analogy I love using is the idea of um, can you enjoy silence with someone? Can you like literally enjoy silence, like sitting in front of a fireplace, drinking a cup of tea and reading a book together? Can you really enjoy silence together, or does it have to be, probing questions all the time? Because I feel like that kind of turns people off more than anything, those kind of probing, almost like job interviewee type questions.
yeah. And some people also get annoyed. They're like, my date wouldn't talk. They wouldn't say anything. I had to carry the conversation. And if you ask both people, which I did as a matchmaker, I would do the feedback afterwards. And I would get these people. One person's like, they talked so much, they wouldn't shut up. They just kept talking about themselves. I could barely get a word in. And the other person's saying, oh, they couldn't even talk. They couldn't carry the conversation. I had to do all the work. And it's like, come on, people. But this sort of brings us to what you and I had talked about a lot before, which is the inner work. Like,
Yeah.
learning how to date and be in an amazing, awesome, healthy, lasting, loving relationship is not about how to find your person. It's a little bit about that, but people make this mistake often, and they think that it's just, oh, I just haven't met the right person yet. But usually it's that you haven't become the right person yet. you haven't gotten to a place in life. And it's not about reaching all your goals and making enough money and being perfect looking. It's not about becoming that person. It's about becoming the person that loves yourself unconditionally, that accepts yourself as you are, that feels like you're doing the best you can, that feels like you are pursuing a life that you want and your dreams. And when we become that person, our confidence grows, our magnetism grows, our attractiveness grows, our discernment grows, and it just becomes so much easier to meet people and date and potentially find your relationship when you are living your life like that.
I love that. I love that. And you're so right. Just, full transparency, you and I did have a pretty intense sample coaching session just, yesterday as we're recording this. And that was the biggest takeaway that I took from it. It wasn't so much about, hey, let's craft a beautiful, online dating profile. It was about, creating your best self, putting your best self forward in pursuit and in the hopes that somebody can find that somebody can align with that, because not everybody's going to be everybody's cup of tea, to use that tired expression. Sometimes you may want to be a rare shot of whiskey for somebody, but you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dating process, it's another reason to work on yourself and build your own confidence and have self-awareness and know who you are and like who you are. Because when you go out there and you get rejected by 90% of the people, it's okay, because there's a difference. If I go out and I get rejected by people and I'm like, oh my God, I knew it, I'm not good enough, no one's gonna like me, this is never gonna work, I'm not gonna find my person, I have to change, I have to fix myself, versus I know who I am, I'm flawed, but I'm awesome, I'm living my best life, I'm doing my best, I know I could be a good partner, I know how to communicate. And then I get rejected by 90% of the people. It's like, okay, awesome, those are not my people, and I don't need to waste my time even thinking about them, because the right person is going to see all of me and want that and appreciate that. So again, it changes our dating experience so much when we change our own outlook and perspective on ourself and our life and what we need in a partner.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. I'm reminded of I'm reminded of these friends of mine who I have told you about in a previous conversation. My friends Alex and Evan, who I have had on the podcast before. Out there, Alex is a fellow graduate of my same coach training program, and they've been married for a few years now, and they ended up, like, just for my listeners who don't know the story, Alex had a relative of his who was set to get married in Mexico in 2020, and the wedding had to get postponed because 2020 was 2020. And but he had bought all of the accommodations, plane tickets, hotel, all that good stuff. But he was in a relationship with a different person at the time, and he just kind of put it out there of what kind, he just kind of put it out there kind of as an open invitation. And some friends of his found this person, mutual friends of both parties, kind of introduced them to each other. They went on a few dates, obviously, before they went to Mexico, and obviously it worked out. So, but those are two people. Granted, I don't know Evan well, but I do know Alex a little better. And it's all about kind of like knowing what makes you tick. So, how much, that kind of leads me into a good question here. How much do you find that that not only that there are people in your life, like people in your circle of friends, who can help you reflect your truth to you, and also just kind of help you, you know, be your wingman, be your wingwoman as you're going out in the world like that.
Yeah, I mean, meeting people. So online dating is not really dating. Online dating is simply a way to meet people that you could potentially date. So friends are an amazing resource to meet people you could potentially date. One of my clients, she just went through my program, and it was like 3 months of self-development in her work, learning how to date. So she wasn't really dating while she was in the program. And then she started, and all of a sudden, this guy that she has been at this weekly meeting with for 4 years, they finally connected, and he was like, I've been admiring you for the last 4 years. I've been fantasizing about you and thinking about you. And she's like, what? She's like, huh? So it wasn't until she did the work and she started focusing on the kind of relationship she wanted that this guy was under her nose the whole time. So talking to your friends, looking at friends of friends, and really evaluating, your friends know you sometimes better than you know yourself, because we tend to be our harshest critic, and we look at all the negative things and all the reasons why someone shouldn't date us when our friends like us, and they're like, no, you're wrong, like you're a great person, people should date you. So it's a really good thing to tell your friends, I'm open to being set up, I'm looking for a partner, maybe a few parameters, so that they don't just send the
Sure.
random person they know is single, but anything that's super important to you. That's great. And the fact that your friends went on a vacation together so soon, that's an interesting one. So there's two sides to the coin. One is um, sometimes rushing into things too quickly, it flames out. Like the fire burns really bright and you're so excited and you can't get enough of each other. And then all of a sudden, just as fast as it started, it just turns off. And so most people, well, you have to recognize what your own patterns are. I'll come back to that. But there's also a benefit to jumping in and going all in with somebody, which is that it removes a lot of the doubt and fear. So a lot of us get anxious in a new relationship, and we overthink it and we worry, and every little thing is like, are they going to leave me? Are they going to leave? Are they going to, there's this like paranoia of losing the person. And so there is an approach to dating. I don't really recommend it because I come from a flame out pattern background. And I know a lot of my clients do also, where they get all in their head and all excited and they're planning the wedding and the kids' names like after the second date. And it's like, no, that's not, not good for you. But there is a method where they say just do 90 days of being in a relationship. Like maybe you just met and you don't know each other that well, but spend 90 days just completely in the relationship. Like there's no out, there's no doubt. We're both in this. We're going to just see how it goes and see what happens. And so that has worked for some people who are always like 1 foot out the door. It's like, no, just stick it out for 90 days and then you decide if you're out the door or not. So the fact that your friends kind of jumped into going on vacation together and like, okay, we're together, um, it probably helped them knowing that they were already a little bit compatible after going on a few dates together and then just kind of jumping in and being together. That's what breeds our love, is when people get to know us and see us and accept us, and when we see people in lots of different environments. And so a lot of times it's just the amount of time that we spend together in person that can
Right.
predict, success in the relationship.
Right, because I feel like, especially with the prevalence of online dating, and we're definitely going to get to those blasted apps, but with the prevalence of online dating, I feel like it's so much, it's almost like a soundbite culture. Like you're having to like put your best foot forward in, whatever, 300 characters or less.
Yeah.
And that's not when you get to know somebody. You get to know somebody when they have a huge triumph in how they handle that. But you also get to know somebody when when they're sad, when they're depressed, when they're going through it, and how they kind of handle, pushing forward from that place. And you don't get that kind of connection with just a picture, a paragraph, and swiping right or swiping left.
You don't. And the only way that you can is to meet people in person. And so when I teach people the practical side of dating, it's create a funnel, meet a lot of people, be exposed to a lot of people that you could potentially date. Some people end up being like hermits and they think that they're just going to magically find their partner while they're Netflix and chilling at home by themselves. And it's like, no, you have to meet people, whether it's through online or going to events or through friends or just going to the local bookstore or restaurant or place where people hang out and chat. If you do that regularly and you start talking to people and you tell them you're single and you tell them what you're looking for and that you're not desperate, you're selective and discerning, but you know what you want, but you need help finding people. There's just so many ways to meet people nowadays. It's wild. And just like I used to work in recruiting, you don't hire a resume. The resume gives you a little bit of info, but you still have to talk to them, you still have to meet them, you have to interview. And dating, it's like that profile, it's almost nothing. It's simply an introduction. It's simply a hello. And you have to do the work to get an in-person date, to feel their energy, to smell their pheromones, to find out if you have a similar life plan and if you want the same things out of a relationship. And if because that's so much of the compatibility these days. Like, do you want kids? Do you not want kids? Do you have kids? Do you want to date someone with kids? Do you want to move? Do you want to travel the world? Like, do you want to work 80 hours a week? Like, these are all important things that we need to understand about each other that you're not going to get from a profile. You have to date, you have to get to know each other, talk, and get out from behind the screen, because texting is also not a good way to get to know each other.
You don't say.
So on my website, one of the things I have is a free guide called How to Get More in Real Life Dates from Dating Apps. And that's like one of the most important things that I hear is people say, well, I went online, but I just didn't get any dates. I just,
Yeah,
chatted and chatted and people disappear. And so we gotta meet people. We gotta go on dates. And it's also
yes.
important to know what your patterns are, because there is not a one size fits all advice. One person might be flame out and they just go after someone and they're all in and they're all excited and it just keeps blowing up because it's like too rushed and too quick. And someone else might be the opposite, where they're just like not meeting people and not going out and afraid to be vulnerable. And so the advice, we want to bring both people to the middle. So the advice is opposite. So we have to be careful, because I think a lot of people are Google searching, how do I date and what do I need to do? And they don't have enough information about their own patterns and where they're coming from to be getting the right kind of advice sometimes. So I have these 13 damaging dating patterns, and I'm developing a quiz so that you can just answer some questions and know what your pattern is, because it's just so important to figure out where to go from there and what the advice is, because you have to know where you're starting from.
Absolutely. You got to know where you're starting from. You have to know yourself and what you're looking for, really, before you get into any of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, one of the things I do with
Mm.
everyone is to create a love intention. And the intention, I love that word because it actually comes from the Latin words meaning to stretch and toward. So it's not just a wish like, oh, I just, please God, send me my person. I can't wait to meet my person. I wish that this would happen. But having an intention is understanding exactly what you want and having this clear vision of your future relationship, how you want to spend your time together, how you want to feel, how you want to communicate. Those are the important things that help you to determine whether a person is a fit for you or not, right? If you're a homebody and you just want to stay home and read books all the time, you've got to find a partner that's compatible with that. And even if someone comes in and they're beautiful and they're amazing and you're like blown away by them, it's not enough if they don't match your lifestyle and compatibility. And the
Completely,
same as
completely.
the reverse is the same too. Sometimes you get really clear about what you want in a relationship and you start meeting people and you're like, huh, I never would have dated this person. I don't ever date people like that. But holy cow, they seem like they could really be a fit in what I'm looking for. So sometimes when we get really clear on what we want, it allows us to open up on some of the other factors that are not as important. And sometimes what comes along is not what we expected. They're a different race, they look totally different, they're nothing like us, they don't have the same background, they didn't grow up where we grew up, but yet it just works and it fits.
I love that. I love that. It just works. It just fits. That I feel like so much of us, so many of us are really looking for that kind of effortless, not put, and when I say effortless, I'm not talking about not putting in effort in the relationship. I'm talking about not having to like square peg everything about yourself to create this kind of idealized version of yourself to fit that relationship.
Yes. Yes. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, with this
Um,
anxious avoidant pattern, people that are anxious in relationships will often go into this pattern of, I'll just be what you want, I'll dress how you want your partner to dress, and if we do that, we lose ourselves and we're no longer authentic to who we are. We're like becoming this person that we think they want. And in the end, it backfires because they don't even get to know the real you and you don't feel loved, even though you've done everything you possibly can to try to be loved. In the end, you don't feel loved because you don't feel like they really know and see who you are.
that that really speaks to me, and that's about all I'm going to say about that. I think two more big questions that I wanted to ask of you. First of all, specifically talking to the men out there, because I think there's a lot of anxiety that a lot of us have with making that first move, especially with all the toxic nonsense that's out there online. Do you have any words of wisdom, words of advice to, to give to the men out there who face this? Like if we see an attractive person at a coffee shop or whatever, just to actually go up and say hi?
Yes. Yes, there's so many layers to this, and you're so right. Especially after the Me Too movement and all of this with women, guys are afraid to say hello, to, be seen as a creep, to be rejected. So the first thing is just to build your own confidence so that you know that if someone rejects you, it doesn't mean that you're a horrible person and a creep and all that. It just means that they're not for you, and that's okay. But you miss every shot you don't take. So if you never try, you're not ever going to meet someone that way. So the the number one advice I would say on how to approach a woman is, you don't have to have a clever line. You don't have to like be amazing. Like, all you have to do is say, "Oh, hi. I have two lines that I use in different scenarios. And one is, you look like somebody I would like to know." How simple is that? Hi, I'm Sean. You look like someone I would love to know. What's your name? It's so simple. And then you just take it from there, right? But it's not like, is that a mirror in your pocket? It's not like these cheesy pickup lines.
Yeah.
And if you go to an event like a meetup or a workshop or a networking event or something where you're all there for the same purpose, you can walk up to anybody and just say, "Hi, I'm Whitney. I haven't met you yet. What's your name?" I haven't met you yet. It's so simple, but it works like a charm. I've used it so many times. And it just sounds like you're supposed to meet that person. It sounds like you're the, networking coordinator that's been talking to everybody. And you're like, "Oh, I haven't met you yet. What's your name?" The only response they will ever have is, "Oh, I'm blah, blah, blah." They're not going to be like, "Why would I talk to you?" They're just going to tell you their name. And then you
Right.
take it from there.
That's I'm writing this down, by the way. I love the simplicity in that. I just flashed on a event from it's been many years ago, but I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings watching a ball game or something. And I remember seeing this one server that they had, and she had this one white daisy in her hair. And I just found that so interesting. And she wasn't even my server. So I stopped her and I think I said something to her like, "I just love the flower in your hair. It's just so cool." Now I'll be the first one to tell you I don't find myself, you know, I don't want to say I don't find myself attractive, but I don't find myself like in my celebrity doppelgangers, Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Gosling kind of level. But that one little line, I think, really broke the ice in a really cool way. So I just love the simplicity in that approach.
Yeah. And it's also different when you come up to someone and say, "Wow, you're so beautiful. I would love to take you out sometime." The guard goes up. The guard goes up because it just naturally does. So you want to go in really smooth and friendly and I'm just saying hello. I'm just asking your name. And then you got to like pick up on the signs. Like, are they like, "Oh, ha ha ha," and like flirting, or are they like, "Ah," you read the room, read the signs, read the
Right.
person. And the other thing is this works for women too. Like, women can approach a man. And again, it's different for a woman to be like, "Wow, I really think you're hot. We should go out sometime." That's like, it's a lot. It's aggressive, but just saying, "Oh, hi, I like your jacket. You look like someone I'd like to know. What's your name?" It's so much easier than people think.
I would melt if that ever happened to me. I would melt. But it's just so simple. It's just so simple, but it's so powerful. Because I feel like a lot, speaking as a man here, a lot of men, we feel like we have to like have the perfect approach, but there's no such thing.
Yeah. And you just have to have the confidence to know that if you are yourself and they don't like you, that's okay. That's not going to be your
Yeah.
person. But if you are yourself and they do like you, like, I think that when we have weird, quirky things about ourselves, we should let that be known as early as possible, because the right person that's like, "Oh, that's cool," is totally like
Yeah.
your person. But if you put on this good facade for a long time, pretending that you're so awesome and cool and collected and together, and then all of a sudden the glass breaks and you realize that this person is not who they've been portraying, that can just backfire. So you're better off just being honest and open upfront with people, and looking for someone that really has that compatibility. And I think for guys too, since we're talking about guys, there's this old thing that guys carry that is like the attractiveness of their partner determines their worth. And it's such bullshit. And it's something that we've got to overcome, that because I know so many guys that they'll see a pretty girl and she might treat them like shit or be psycho. And they're like, whatever, she's pretty. And it's because he needs that validation, because he doesn't feel good enough unless he has that pretty girl by his side. And it's bullshit. And yeah, I think girls do it too now that this whole masculine feminine thing has gotten so upended and flipped on its head. Girls do it too, and they just want an attractive guy. And that's why the top 10% of guys online get all the attention and all the girls. And then all 90% of the guys don't have women flocking to them. And the advice for that other 90% of the guys is like, you've got to have a really great profile, best possible pictures of yourself, show part of your personality, stand out, be funny. Like, there's so much more you can accomplish through your personality than just the superficial way that someone looks, and what their attractiveness does to your ego.
That speaks to me on a pretty deep level here, because I feel like one of my patterns in my past has been, pretty girl shows me intention. I gotta, I gotta create myself into that image because I love seeing those pictures of us together. But is that real compatibility in the end, if you think about it?
You also got to think about, like, I'm in my 40s now, my partner's in his 50s. Like, our looks are going to fade. Like, we're going to gain, everyone's going to probably gain weight and get wrinkles, and the hair's going to thin. And it's just like, how important is it how someone looks? Like, when you're 70 and you're sitting in those rocking chairs together on the couch and holding hands, and grandkids are running around, or whatever you picture your old age to be, traveling the world, whatever, like, everybody's looks kind of fade and we all start to look more similar. And again, it comes down to the values. Like, do you value taking care of yourself? Do you value, like, health and whatever? And the more confident we get and the more self-love and self-compassion we have, the better we do tend to take care of ourselves and go to those dentist visits and doctor's appointments and do the things we're supposed to do and all that stuff. So yeah, attractiveness, I mean, it's just proven to not be a great predictor of relationship success in a lot of cases.
And that's why I find those dating apps to be so shallow sometimes, because it's if you can get past the pictures, and if you can get past the quirky paragraph on your out me on your dating profile, to be able to find that, to be able to find out what somebody's values are, that's really where the success lies in the end.
Yeah. And it's not just about what the profile has in it, it's also about how you communicate. If you're sending messages that just say, hey, beautiful, how are you? You're not going to get responses. You have to, I mean, I teach this stuff. So on my website, I also have my offer for a 90-minute session. We can go through your dating profile. I can tell you this picture's got to go, change this, add this. You sound too generic. Don't say I love to travel. Tell a specific story about a specific travel event that you did or that you want to do. Like, we have to stand out, because if you as a guy were to scroll through all the guys' profiles, you'd start to see that they all sound the same and they all look the same. And like, when I have 50 guys to choose from, how am I going to choose one? Like, they're all whatever, they're all a commodity. And so you probably see it with the girls too. They're all like, I like yoga and travel and going out to eat. And it's like, how do I know who's, and the truth is you don't. So you have to just talk to a lot of them, and then you filter them out. too many people are trying to filter people out at the very beginning at one glance. And it's like, you're going to make bad decisions when you're filtering people out solely by a few sentences and a picture. I've seen people whose pictures look so bad. And when you meet them in person, you're like, oh my God, like you look so much better than your picture. And it goes both ways too. Sometimes someone looks really good in their picture and they don't, but you just have to be open to meeting people.
Yep. You have to be open to meeting people. And, speaking of that, I think one last question is that for somebody who is looking to create a relationship in 2025, if they're looking to create that story of themselves in 2025, um, what are some ways that people can actually get out and meet people other than swiping left and swiping right on an app on their smartphone?
All right. I'm going to give you 10 real quick. Okay.
Okay.
So, one is attend local social and networking events. So, look on meetup.com, look on Eventbrite. There's all kinds of different, like Partyful and all these little sites now where they post events. You just have to go, get up, get out of the house, get dressed, go talk to some people. You might meet a friend that then invites you to an event where you meet someone else that invites you to their party. And at their party, you meet your person. So I know I met my late husband because I made new friends on Meetup and then went to hang out with them. And then that's when I met my husband. So I didn't meet him at the event, but I met the people that led me to him. You can join clubs, join sports leagues like kickball or just those fun co-ed groups. You have to be in co-ed environments. A lot of women nowadays, they go to a yoga class with all women. They go to their women's networking group. They're only hanging out with women, and that's great, but not for meeting a partner. You have to figure out where the men are, where your ideal partner is. You can do like cooking classes, nature, things in nature, retreats, festivals, even like little street festivals. But you've got to be willing to talk to people. You've got to be willing to approach someone and say, like, oh, how's the cotton candy? Is it good? I was thinking of getting some. Like, just, it doesn't matter how you break the ice. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you have to be able to break the ice to be able to talk to people, get to know them. Let's see, attending singles events. So I'm hosting my first singles event in about a week and a half because I just see a need for it. And it's not speed dating. I find that speed dating is a little bit like that forced thing where it's awkward. And I like mixers better, where you could just wander around and talk to who you want to talk to. Even if you don't meet your person there, you might meet a wingman or a friend that you could go out with. And so it's a really great thing to let some of the pressure off and just look at it as making some friends, who might lead to a romantic relationship. You can, if you just go to a coffee shop and you're just a regular there, get to know the people behind the counter, talk to them, tell them you're single, see if they meet someone, like if you're there on a regular basis, you'll see other people that are there regularly. And then when you chat with them, it's not so awkward. It's like, oh, I've seen you here a bunch of times before. So think about where your person is going to hang out. Like I had a client and she realized that she liked guys that liked cigars. Like she was Cuban, Miami, and she's like, I want a guy that smokes cigars. So she hung out at some cigar bars. It's like, go where you think your person will be, as long as it aligns with you and your values too. So if you are looking for a girl, maybe there's a cafe that's right next to a beauty salon. And so there's women going in and out all day long, like getting their hair done, getting their nails done. And you're sitting outside with your coffee and you're just like, hey, how's it going? Do you have the time? Like just simple things to break the ice. And then we already talked a bit about friends and how talking to your friends can be great ways to meet people, going to events, go to the wedding, go to the birthday party, go to the dinner party. Like you never know who you're going to meet and what it might lead to. But again, there's dynamic of the practical advice, like, where do I meet people? How do I do my profile? What do I say to them? And then there's the inner work. So you have to get to a place where you feel confident enough to overcome that fear, and that you know, overcome the rejection and all those things. So it's like doing both is the magic that I've discovered after, you know, devoting my life to this over, you know, most of my adult life, figuring out how to have a great relationship.
I love it. I love it. And we could certainly talk about this forever. Thank you so much for your time today, Whitney. How people work with you if they want to create that relationship in their lives?
Yes, and my pleasure. Thank you for having me as a guest. It's been fun. I've enjoyed this conversation. I love talking about this stuff. My website is just my name, Whitney Kobrin, KOBRIN.com. And at my site, you can book a free consultation. So if you're interested, you want to learn more, you want to know if this could even help you, you just want some free tips, no problem. Sign up for a free dating in a digital world strategy call, and we can talk about anything. On my site, there's also the how to get more in real life dates from dating apps that you can download and join my newsletter. You can find me on YouTube. I have a podcast called Love Coach in My Pocket. And I also have an app called Love Coach in My Pocket that you can download. A lot of my marketing is geared towards women, but I do work with men as well. So men, women, come, and I'd love to help you find your love.
I think that's a beautiful note to leave on. Whitney Kobrin, thank you so much for getting solar powered with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you for watching and listening to the Solar Powered Podcast, a presentation of Royal Hearts Media. For more information about me and my services, just go to royalheartsmedia.com. That's about to be under construction, by the way. So FYI on that. You can follow me on the social media machine at Ryan Hall Writes on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or shoot me a good old-fashioned email at ryan.hall@royalheartsmedia.com. But that'll do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Ryan Hall saying thanks for listening. So long for now. I love you all, and go get solar powered.